Okay.
Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast of Storm, where social outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds convene, talk, and debate all things pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
I am doing okay. I am currently trying to wrangle my cat because he wants attention, and I wondered if he would be willing to stay on that cat for a bit. But the answer appears to be no. I scooped him onto my lap, and he immediately jumped down again.
To be fair, that sounds like a York. That sounds like your cat.
He's he's in a weird mood now because in order to wrangle him onto my lap, I had to pick him up in a way more aggressive than I usually do, and he now thinks it's playtime. Which is normally adorable, but I can't pay attention to where he's clawing me while we're doing this, so he's just going to have to wait his turn.
Oh, hey! Surprise, surprise! Everyone can see Dalton's face now.
Yes, because my phone is no longer a piece of shit that needs to be at a very particular position in order to charge properly. And looks like he got up on the back of the chair instead of deciding to lap cat today. So, first say hello to everybody.
But I feel like he's a little shit when he's not on camera.
He's a little shit all the time, but that's neither here nor there. I did name him after the West Wind, so that is kind of to be expected. So there.
Yeah, well, he's also your cat. So
He's a little spoiled boy, but it's okay.
no, I was talking about you being overall sassy bitch all the time.
Fair play.
Yeah. All right, so it is kind of going to be a short one, just simply because we haven't really found anything that's really caught our eye as much as we're getting back in the swing of things. And
it was a slow week, folks. It was a very, very slow week.
We're also just, I think both of us have just been really busy. Like our lives have been kind of hectic lately. So
yeah. I found what appeared to be a tick bite on my leg, and I still need to go to the doctor's probably tomorrow because tomorrow is the day that my aunt has off. So she'll be able to help my mom, who is currently injured, get me around and stuff. So, that's been a thing that I've been paying not a great but not undue amount of attention to because I really don't want to fucking end up with late stage Lyme's disease.
Okay, moving on from that dour note. We had planned to do this obviously because it came out in early November instead of in October, and we've been over that.
Which again, why Netflix? Why you do this incredibly counterintuitive and entirely avoidable thing?
Anyway, we're going to be reviewing Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Not an actual image from the movie, but to be fair, I really like the artwork of Wrightson. What's his name? First name?
Bernie Wrightson.
Thank you. I like his Frankenstein art. It's like I'll be honest, it's like some of the earliest stuff I remember seeing of Frankenstein.
Mm.
So I just have like a special place in my. It's like that is the creature that is the creature that I picture whenever I think of Adam. So
Mm.
I do think there's some similarities with the movie and this design. To be fair, I feel like Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein does take a lot of inspiration from a lot of different things regarding the character. So,
Hmm.
um, so I just want to start with general thoughts then first.
Yeah,
It's good.
it's it knocked Sinners out of my number one spot for the year. I think it it might actually be Guillermo del Toro's best work since the first Hellboy.
Mm. Um, uh, God, what can I say that I didn't really say that I didn't say when we watched the trailers? I'm trying to find the words here. Give me a second.
Hmm.
Okay, broadest sense I can paint here before we go more nitty gritty. Um, it's well, I have seen some. I'll get into that later, but I genuinely like this film. It's far more a decent adaptation of the Frankenstein novel than some other more popular works. Um, but I still think it does its own thing and does it rather well. And you can really tell that Guillermo del Toro put a lot of effort and love into this project.
I'd go so far as to say it's probably his magnum opus. Like, there are some combinations of director or creative and IP or and idea that just work. Like the closest analogy I can make for this is it doesn't, or the closest sort of point of reference I can make for this is it doesn't fall victim to the same problem as Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland did. Because I remember prior to Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland coming out, everyone thought that it necessarily would be perfect because it's a director being allowed to lean into all his most um, unique and specific tendencies. But then Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland came out, and it was a complete clusterfuck. This does not have that problem. This movie gives you everything you'd want from, or everything you'd picture from Guillermo del Toro's take on Frankenstein. Just picture something as a result of that premise, and it's in here. But it's in here to its fullest possible extent. I'm actually, after watching this, slightly mad that Shape of Water already got Guillermo his Oscar because the Oscar committee hates giving the major Oscars away multiple times to the same person. And fuck me, this movie is the movie that deserves to be an Oscar winner. God damn it! Everything is. It doesn't really do anything more than you'd expect from Guillermo del Toro does Frankenstein, but it does everything that you would expect or that you would want from Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein to its like highest possible quality threshold. I mentioned, I think earlier, I think this is his best work since Hellboy. And
Yeah.
we all know how great Guillermo can be when he's on the top of his game. and he is at the very crest, the very apex of his game in this movie. And he manages to get everyone else on the top of their respective games as well. And given the caliber of talent that he was able to net for this movie, that is saying something. I think everyone delivers their all. I only have a couple minor complaints with the thing, and one of them is just I think the wrong person is cast as Victor, but we will get to that when we get into more detail.
Okay. I figure we can go into that now because now I'm curious about that.
I really wish Christoph Waltz was playing Victor and not the industrialist guy. I really wish Christoph Waltz was in the Victor part, because God, that could be so much better. Not that Adam Driver does anything wrong, mind you. It's just he
Oscar
and
Isaac.
Christoph, yeah, but yeah, it's not that the guy they have playing Victor does a bad job playing Victor or anything. It's just that by the nature of the story, he and Christoph Waltz have to share a lot of screen time, at least in the first half of the movie. And every time I saw them together, I'm like, why in the fuck wasn't Christoph Victor? Which is a completely different use of that phrase that I usually do, because usually when I use that phrase, we're talking about Doctor Doom, but that's neither here nor there. If I had a time where Christoph Waltz would be the perfect casting for a character named Victor and was not casted as them for inexplicable reasons, I would have two nickels. And it's weird that it happened twice. as the Doofenshmirtz theme goes. But yeah, that is really my only complaint. And again, it's nothing against Oscar Isaac. It's just Christoph Waltz could act circles around him on a good day anyway, and he would be a much more book accurate Victor, I think. Anyway, that's one of my minor quibbles out of the way. Is I love that Christoph Waltz is in this movie, but he was casted for the wrong role, and it makes me sad. Do you have any deeper analyses or points that you want to get out of the way?
Well, okay, go into the more technical aspects of it because that's my thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very beautifully shot. Obviously, every still or frame is very much painstakingly made. The lighting is fantastic. It feels natural, but also very dramatic, which given its Gothic literature roots and kind of Guillermo del Toro's sensibilities, which going towards more actually Golden Age Hollywood in terms of designing and set design, set dressing, all that. It really adds an interesting layer of style to it that it's been a while since I've really seen that. Don't get me wrong, there are
sorry, go ahead.
that I haven't seen in recent years. There are some exceptions, obviously, but it's the movies that do have the style, that have effort put into them to make them stylistic, are memorable. Which what I'm getting at, obviously, is there's been a lack of style in a lot of movies relatively recently, and the ones that do that obviously stand out the most and kind of get exalted a little bit, like Sinners or Nosferatu or of that nature.
Mm-hmm. This movie actually makes for an excellent double feature with Nosferatu, I think.
I do agree with that. I think I mentioned that when we did the last trailer. Music-wise, it is. So this is kind of a critique of mine. I don't think the score, the OST, is bad. It has its moments, but I do feel it could be more memorable.
Yeah, I can see that. It is kind of a generic Guillermo del Toro like instrumental, or a generic instrumental for a Guillermo del Toro movie. It's one of those things of like it does everything you'd expect when you hear the phrase Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. It just doesn't do much more than that.
See, I don't know if I agree with that, because the weird thing is with Guillermo del Toro movies. Granted, I guess the one that stands out, like the theming or music that stands out to me the most in one of his movies, is Pacific Rim, specifically just the main theme of it. But yeah, it's weird because I feel like it could go more gothic. It feels like it should have like a. Okay, maybe it's just me and how my brain works.
No, what I meant, and I agree with you. What I meant is it's very similar to the score for Shape of Water, and very similar to the score for the first Hellboy. I don't know about the second one.
Okay.
It's all very Guillermo del Toro. And if you are a obsessive Guillermo del Toro fanboy, hi, you kind of notice that he tends to prefer similar styles of music, or rather, that the composer he likes to work with most often tends to favor similar styles of music. In this case, I think it's probably a little bit of both. These two have been working together for so long that they just sort of get into their usual rhythm.
Can I interject?
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just saying, like, my ideal, like, whenever I think of doing a Frankenstein movie in any fashion, how I've always pictured a soundtrack to do for it is very much in line with the character of Adam, which is very patchwork, very like jumbled together, that eventually cohesively bonds together to create something unique.
Coalesces, I think, is the word you were looking for there.
Probably. Or was I thinking whatever. Like at first, like again, it's like when you have the creature that is first created, you have a more disconnected, very like jumbled mess of musical instruments playing, while there is an underlying like thematic chord that you can hear in it, but it's subtle. It's very, and then that specific piece starts to get louder, get more expressive, more what's the word for like
Substantive?
No. Yeah, more it starts to take form. There's a word for that. I can't remember what
Sublimated?
I wasn't thinking that word, man. I'm not that smart.
I'm trying to think of words that begin with sub that also mean like.
That might even not be it. I don't know. My brain's weird.
I know that, but this is why I try to help, because sometimes I can poke your brain and make it click in places.
But as Adam develops, as he grows and becomes the perfect man, as we've come to know, the music changes with him to signify that. That's what I was signify that.
Other small nitpick that actually, like, it is a small nitpick, but I think it branches out into I'm not even gonna necessarily call it I guess just a missed opportunity here. Because, okay, the novel is set in roughly the year it came out, which was 1818. The movie moves the timeline up to about the 1850s at the start,
Right.
which wouldn't be a bad thing, but I think the reason why they did it was to make the use of electricity more central. The problem being, and maybe I'm biased because me and Brainstormer have done a lot with our own versions, although frankly, we were both kind of inspired by Guillermo del Toro, so it's odd to see he doesn't take this route. Because Guillermo del Toro, and I happen to know because I have his book, Cabinet of Curiosities, uh, which collates a lot of his notebooks and drafts and things with regards to his other movies, and as a result, you get a good feel for Guillermo del Toro's style. He really likes the beginning of the Age of Exploration, where things like Cabinets of Curiosities were not uncommon. That's part of the reason the book is called that. And so you would think that Guillermo, of all people, especially given some of the other little nudges to it in other books or other movies, would kind of lean into the alchemical ambiguity of the creation of Adam. The problem being, he moved the timeline up so that the electricity could be more plausible, which only serves to make this Frankenstein more in line with all the other Frankensteins. And if anyone could do like alchemical justice to Frankenstein's creation,
Uh,
I think Guillermo, who takes a lot of his like philosophical and stylistic bearings from the very early part of the like Age of Exploration, when alchemy and science were kind of still intermingled a little bit. I think it would have been better if he had just left the timeline where it was originally in the book, and that way he could have borrowed a little bit more from not only alchemical understanding but also alchemy as an aesthetic, and differentiated it more from the everyone uses lightning shtick that everyone does.
And I think I proposed this idea when we watched the trailers. Is I would have been fine if it was a mixture of both. To be fully honest.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be one or the other. In fact, combining different styles and different functions is something that Guillermo does a lot. Like, for example, in the first Hellboy, we see Rasputin combining World War II era technology with the black magic of the Thule Society, hence the portal and so on. I think doing something along those lines, combining alchemical like philosophy and alchemical symbolism and alchemical aesthetics with little touches of lightning rather than have it just be lightning like it is every other fucking time, I think that could have benefited. It's one of those things of, given that I am such a fanboy of Guillermo's, and given that he and I kind of vibe a lot with regards to our philosophical and stylistic underpinnings, I think that ironically he would have been better served going more with those inspirations and those instincts, because I think that might have been one of the missing elements that could take this Frankenstein from a really, really, really good version to a definitive version. Instead of breaking the ground that only Guillermo del Toro can break, he defaults back to the old standby of the lightning, which as a pop culture touchstone is fine because it makes the audience very comfortable with the making process. But I think it could have had more meat on the bone to do it the old way, which also would have the side effect of being more loyal to the novel, because the exclusive use of lightning was something pioneered not by Mary Shelley, but by I forget the guy who directed the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, but
Give me one
it's
sec.
that version that made the lightning and the electricity so central. I think it, and again, by no means am I saying that this movie is bad. Under absolutely no circumstances, it is the best movie of the year, in my opinion, and it is one of Guillermo del Toro's best movies by a mile. Which, given the high watermark for Guillermo del Toro, is saying something in and of itself. But it's the difference between a really, really well presented way of treading familiar ground and paying even more attention to the novel than even most versions that try to adapt the novel do.
So James Whale.
Hmm?
James Whale.
Thank you.
Yep.
I should have remembered his name, but yes, obviously the electricity is the safe choice because it puts the movie in continuity with all the other movies in terms of things the audience will recognize. But both in general, because I prefer to see mystical stuff in general, but also knowing full well how much overlap there is philosophically between the way I look at things and Guillermo del Toro, I think this could have gone from a 10 out of 10 good movie to a 10 out of 10 great movie. Just those two little changes. Keep it within the timeline of the movie or of the book, and lean into the mystical or quasi-mystical alchemical ambiguity and do what Guillermo del Toro is known for, and by all means combine a bunch of shit and overlap a bunch of shit, which would make the complexity even more striking, but also even more Del Toro at the same time.
Right. So, okay, we're talking a little more about this. Jacob Elordi as Adam.
Oscar-winning performance, and that is all I have to say about that. If he is not at least nominated, there is something fundamentally wrong with the Academy. I know there's something fundamentally wrong with the Academy on many levels, but if Jacob Elordi does not get at least a Best Actor nomination for this, then the entire Academy can fucking burn down like Victor's castle there. But Tish.
It wasn't even a castle, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he really brought just a genuine innocence, but also an intellect as well, like a profound intelligence.
There's an almost poetry to the way Adam moves here, and it again. I don't know what was Guillermo del Toro's direction, what was the actor giving it his all, and what was a combination of the two. But holy fucking shit. If this guy doesn't at least get a Best Actor nomination, the Academy's seriousness as an institution is over, and we should get pitchforks and torches.
Oh, dude, the Academy's, you say seriousness?
Yes.
Well, the Academy's been serious since the early 2000s.
I am aware. I am aware they have well and truly lost their cultural mandate. But this will be the final nail in the coffin if Jacob Elordi does not get. I'm not even necessarily asking him to win, although he fucking should, and him not doing so would be par for the course of the Academy's stupid decisions at this point. But he should at the very least be nominated.
What was I gonna say? Fuck. Makeup is amazing too, by the way.
Yeah, and they don't fall into making Adam unnecessarily grotesque trap either. They do seem to lean into the thing I always keep saying, which is, or the element of the novel that I always keep pointing out, which is Victor intended fully to make a perfected being. So the aesthetics of said creature should be at least capable of evoking that. And here again, the movie hits a 10 out of 10.
One thing I was actually super interested about, which is it? I think it's the left eye of Adam. It has
Mm-hmm.
to be some type of. It has to be some type of animal, because in night it does have a reflectiveness like night vision. Some animals
Mm-hmm.
have, I just found that super interesting.
Yeah, it's such a small design detail, but this movie is a study in everyone doing the right thing at the right time in the right way, and it all just coming off without a hitch.
I was gonna say something. I do. Okay, so I'm gonna be fully honest. This is a bit greedy of me.
But
I kind of wish it was a little bit longer, because the second half, like Adam's half, felt a bit
Mhm.
rushed, right?
It did. It did. I do
wasn't
think
bad. It wasn't bad or anything. It's just like it felt like there needed to be some more uh,
getting
time.
his perspective in its entirety would have benefited things. I agree.
Yeah.
Which again is not a slight against this movie. Like I said, everything that is here works perfectly, and this may not be the definitive version. I think some of the minor changes we're suggesting would make this the definitive version. Even if this isn't the definitive version of the story, it is Guillermo del Toro's masterpiece. And Guillermo del Toro is known for producing masterpieces. And this is a masterpiece among masterpieces.
So I think also it's just like with how the trailers were edited, it kind of did sort of tell a kind of different story.
Mm-hmm.
I will say mostly the one that was focused on Adam's perspective kind of told a different story.
Mm-hmm.
Because it felt like, to me at least, what I think would have been more interesting is that have they kind of touch upon it, but I kind of would have liked a little more depth to it. That Victor was emulating the practices of his father being an abusive jackass.
Yeah, they did. They did. Like the scene where he's motivating Adam to speak by beating the fuck out of him.
Not hitting him, striking him with a iron fire poker, I believe.
Yeah.
Similar to earlier in the film when his father was striking him when he could not figure out.
Yeah, with I think a birch branch is what we're supposed to interpret that as being. But point being, when it got to that part, all I could think of was the disappointment scene from The Boys season 3, where Soldier Boy ends up committing the same error as his father, as we learn in his story in the previous episode. That's immediately what I thought of when I saw that scene. I was like, oh fuck. Which it works. It works entirely and is perfectly in line with Victor's blind spot. And again, this may not be the definitive version of the story, but it is certainly one of the best adapted versions of the novel, period, and among Guillermo del Toro's best.
I think we're just missing more scenes. I guess okay. This is a bit
Yeah,
stupid me to talk about.
go ahead.
But I think we had kind of theorized when we watched the trailers. Again, I think it's just like the second trailer was like so good, portraying an interesting idea that it got stuck in my head, and I had the expectation of it going that way.
Hmm.
And I don't really like doing that, mind you. But kind of working with what we had from that trailer and comparing it to this, believed I theorized originally that we kind of spent time where Victor and Elizabeth and possibly even Henry, if we wanted to do that, they were for the time they are trying to teach Adam. Obviously, Victor wasn't getting through the continuing cycle of abuse that his father did with him.
Yep, if Adam is a monster, Victor, he is only so because his father could not be asked to love him or be patient with him.
Right. Kind of gets there at the end, but depends on your perspective of it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But again, and to be fair, I think because Elizabeth was originally the betrothed of Victor in the novel. In this one, she's
Betrothed
thank you.
to his brother.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I won't say is. I'm not saying that's a bad one or anything. It's interesting take, to say the least.
I think it helps. I think it helps explain why Victor has the blind spots he has, because it's that old standby of trauma begetting more trauma. Victor was unloved by his father and watched as his brother was lavished love upon, and so he winds up almost committing the same error with Adam, even though Victor knows better and should have thought it. Especially, okay, minor quibble. I know I'm supposed to hate Victor, and that is very much in keeping with the novel. But holy fucking shit, did I rage with the poker scene, the iron poker scene, given that even in Victor's own telling of the events, when he has like the early model and he's showing it off at the university, he says, "Please always helps." You would think this would translate in Victor's head as, I need to be kind to Adam in order that he be in order that his potential becomes better actualized. But of course, much like Soldier Boy and Homelander's dynamic in season 3 of The Boys, rather than be better than the father who scorned him, Victor winds up committing the exact same fucking error, and it makes what could have easily been a paragon, and in many ways still was a paragon, into the monster that he was afraid it would become. Not through any inherent flaw of resurrecting people or creating new life with that method or anything, but from Victor's own being the worst father in literary history. Although here a much more explicably understandable one, considering that we see, and said abuse was still there in the novels to some degree and does go on to inform the way Victor is, but Guillermo del Toro in his brilliance decided to shine a fucking spotlight on that shit and thus make the point even clearer, which I did appreciate. It's just, you so successfully adapted the character that I hate, Guillermo, that hate ended up getting mostly transferred to this version of the character, which again is an A plus at adapting the novel. It just makes me want to strangle Victor with his own entrails.
Right. Okay, it's gonna sound weird to me. This is gonna sound weird coming from me. And we'll be fully honest, I've not read the novel technically ever.
Hmm.
But I do think there should have been some more moral ambiguity between Victor and Adam in terms of their characterizations. Now, don't get me wrong. What I mean is, Adam in the novel, to my understanding, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Don, because I'm fairly certain you've read the book.
I have. It is, in fact, one of my favorite books because Adam, in general, is one of my favorite characters in all of literature, and that is saying something.
I
I,
mean,
I've.
in the novel, to my if
Go ahead. Sorry.
He does kill some of Victor's family in order to convince him to make him a mate, and other times,
It's less to convince him in the novel and more to punish him for refusing. It's Adam's last desperate act to show his father that his father is fucking up. It's an unloved child's tantrum that escalates to murder because said child is an 8-foot behemoth who, has all those great qualities now turned into malignancy by the refusal of his father to raise him like a loving father should.
Right. But my point obviously being is, don't get me wrong, I get that he only did, I agree. He did that out of more desperation than anything. But my point still stands is that it does, and don't get me wrong, I get it. Adam is more so. See, this is the thing with the older novels, that they're a lot more complex than simplicity's sake allows it to be. And
Mm-hmm.
I think kind of it's not a big issue, but it is an issue to be said that the movie somewhat makes it black and white.
I think Guillermo did that because of his usual I always have sympathy for the monster thing.
No, I
Which
get that. I get that. I'm just saying, I think it would be.
I also think he might have de-ambiguated it because there are still people who I swear to God have the reading comprehension of third graders who think that Adam is the monster in the story rather than Victor.
Well, I would.
And
I don't disagree with you. I very much agree, but I do think Adam became a monster given it's the whole nature versus thing.
yeah, he had the potential to be a god among men, but his father didn't love him, nor care for him, nor nurture him, and so all those good qualities, that intellect, that soulfulness, that strength, turned from what would have been a paragon into a monster.
Yeah. So again, like with these older novels, I think with all the stuff that's packed into it, that often gets, when you adapt it into like movies specifically, a lot of it gets left on the cutting room floor, which is unfortunate. And
I understand your criticism, but this falls, I think, in the category of Guillermo del Toro's going to Guillermo del Toro.
no,
One of his strongest reoccurring themes has always been sympathy for the monster, and this is probably the best source material to work with if that is one of your abiding, like, underlying, like, motifs or themes. This is perfect for Guillermo, and I think that's why this was so effective, is because you're taking the quintessential sympathy for the monster story and giving it to the guy who excels to an almost obsessive degree at sympathy for the monster.
I agree. I agree. I just feel like the criticism should be out there at least.
Yeah, no, and if you guys are noticing, almost all of our criticisms are essentially minor nitpicks, which should tell you a lot about the levels that this movie works on. I think this movie is going to get better with age because I can't foresee anyone else currently in Hollywood ever doing a better version of this story than Guillermo did. It may not be the definitive version. I think a lot of our criticisms or a lot of the adjustments we're suggesting would make it work better in this regard. But what fails to be the definitive version is still a masterpiece from a guy who makes a lot of masterpieces.
Um,
in the vein of minor tweaks or minor nitpicks, and I think piggybacking off of Brainstormer's point about I wish the movie was a little bit longer still, I felt that the relationship between Adam and Elizabeth was rushed, and I think if they had maybe 20 minutes more to build that, it would have helped the movie immensely.
I will say Elizabeth's character, to my knowledge, again, don't feel like right me, she wasn't too much of a character in the book.
Yeah, she was mostly loved in that very chaste or quasi-Victorian way that novels of the time did, and so she became a sign of Victor's connection to his humanity and Adam's method for punishing his father for being a terrible father.
Right.
But even so, I think Guillermo could have very easily padded those two things out to make her more three-dimensional and to give the preference that Elizabeth develops for Adam over Victor more emphasis.
And also, okay, keep in mind with the runtime, like the longer runtime, I would have loved to see the memories in his dreams of other men, like how that worked, how that looked.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was such an interesting. That was the thing I kind of latched onto when we first saw the trailer. Like that was first said, right?
Mm.
Just like that stuck with me for some reason.
I do think there would have. I do think there's definitely space that could have been resolved into showing that. Mind you, Guillermo is trying to keep the budget under some kind of control, but Guillermo is very good at making extremely cheap things look extremely stylized and expensive. It's one of the many things that he and I have in common, and it's one of the many things that I absolutely adore about him. So they definitely could have visualized that more, almost kind of like and maybe this is because Brainstorm and I have been recently rewatching Hannibal, kind of like Will's reconstructions that he does in Hannibal, the TV series, not the movie. So something along those lines would be really, really interesting.
Right. Be fair. I think with like a lot of these, like, I think there's only like. You can tell me if they're like other, well, maybe Invisible Man, but I don't know if that technically counts as gothic literature.
Sci-fi, yes. Gothic, no. Definitely not. Not Invisible Man.
Whatever. The I think with like the longer form ones, obviously like Dracula, like uh, Frankenstein. I'm sure there are a few others that I'm not aware of.
Hmm.
Um, I do think in order to properly, not word for word, obviously adapt, but to really get into the nitty gritty of the things, I honestly think instead of like miniseries like that Dracula one that came out a few years ago, or it, there should be like kind of a long form like TV series that really dives into each like a lot of the aspects that no one really covers from the books.
Hmm.
Speaking of which, I recently learned that there was a cowboy that killed Dracula in the novel.
Yes, sir.
Why the fuck has that never been brought up? Hell, I'm more surprised Nosferatu didn't put. Well, actually, when they
Because a lot of people forget that the Victorian era for the English was the Wild West era for the Americans.
I'm just saying, like that sounds fucking interesting.
Yeah, Dracula versus Cowboy is a thing in the novel that happens and could very easily have happened in the movies, but never does.
Technically, well, no, I think the '90s one with Gary Oldman had him.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, I think that's a really good parallel for this movie. I would go so far as to say that Guillermo did better than
Francis Ford Coppola.
yeah, but in terms of like analogizing, adapting the source material rather than adapting the pop culture concept, I think that's probably a pretty decent analogy for what went on here. I think Guillermo, much like a lot of us Frankenstein fans, got really, really pissed that people never fucking adapt the novel and only ever adapt the Boris Karloff version.
Okay, so I can understand Universal doing that because they kind of started with it, right?
Mhm.
Like in their epic universe attractions and stuff. Even like when they're trying to remake that movie, they go for the more, Boris Karloff style and stuff.
Yeah, because it's their baby, so why not have them give nods to it? Although I'm curious, given that they kind of are doing Epic Universe backwards, they're building the park first and letting the park inform the adaptations. I am curious how much of I'm curious because I've liked everything I've seen from their Epic Universe take on the MonsterVerse, so I am now curious what they're going to do with regards to the adaptations in a way
I
that a lot of the previous times they've tried to remake or redo a Universal Monsters universe didn't impress me.
I'm sorry. It genuinely frustrates me that that's how it works.
Hmm.
Because why the fuck weren't these guys working on the fucking movies then?
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those. It's like the Snyderverse. It's actually a really good comparison. Why in the fuck are they using every idea that didn't work previously and only now kind of getting the point finally? And even then, there are there are still very many outstanding questions about how in the fuck the Gunverse is going to work and how well it is indeed working already and so on.
All right, I think that's about it, right?
Yeah, again, this movie is the best movie in the of the year in my opinion. I understand anyone who thinks that the gap between this and Sinners is closer. It must be said, like I say, that I like philosophically, aesthetically, and just storytelling wise, really vibe with Guillermo del Toro. But even taking those factors out of this, even as someone who really, really likes Guillermo del Toro, I can tell you that not every idea he has is a winner. setting Pinocchio during the rise of Mussolini, bad idea. Having some of the elements in Pan's Labyrinth probably could have been toned down a little bit, etc. But this is one of, and the social justice elements of Shape of Water especially really end up kind of nerfing that movie. But being that as it may, I like a lot of Guillermo del Toro's stuff, but not everything he does is perfect or perfectly executed. This one is pretty damn close. Like I say, I think I think both Brainstormer and myself can highlight points about, honestly, if it had leaned into the Del Toroism just a little bit harder, I think it would have benefited the movie. But while this movie falls short of being the definitive Frankenstein, it's still probably the best Frankenstein we're going to get in our lifetimes. And by all means, Hollywood, please feel free to prove me wrong. Please feel free to compete with each other over this. But realistically, especially in today's day and age where Hollywood barely has a fucking clue most of the time, this is the best Frankenstein we're going to get for a very, very long time. Again, reserving the possibility that I want to be proven wrong because I want there to be better Frankensteins. This is my opening statement was, there are some things that are just a perfect synthesis between the creative and the material they are working with. And this is one of those where they just fit each other like a glove. This is the movie that Guillermo has wanted to make for decades, and you can tell it in every frame of the fucking thing. And I don't know if he got people that already kind of agreed with his vision, or if his vision was just so infectious that it galvanized everyone working on the thing. But everyone is giving their all here. And I know it probably won't get Best Picture because Shape of Water already gave Guillermo his Oscars, and the Academy is stupid in that they don't like giving the big Oscars to the same person more than once. But being that as it may, this movie is more deserving of Oscar attention than Shape of Water. This movie is more deserving of Oscar attention than last year's or a couple years ago's Pinocchio. This movie is more deserving of Oscar attention, maybe even than Pan's Labyrinth, although the jury is still out on that. I'm not going that far. But I will say it again. I think it's his best movie since the first Hellboy, and that's saying something.
You done?
Yeah.
So I looked it up. Nosferatu takes place in the 1830s, so there wouldn't have been they couldn't have done a cowboy.
No, they could not have done a cowboy in Nosferatu, because Nosferatu did at least try to differentiate Orlok from Dracula, even though it was kind of an off-brand Dracula adaptation because they didn't have the rights at the time. So no cowboy in Nosferatu.
Quincy Morris.
Was the name of the cowboy in the novel?
Yeah. Wealthy Texan cowboy who becomes a suitor to Lizzie Westerina. Loyal friend to the other suitors, Arthur Holmwood and Dr. John Seward, join the group to hunt Dracula. In the final confrontation, he delivers a crippling blow to Dracula with his Bowie knife, but is mortally wounded and dies, leading Jonathan and Mina Harker to name their son after him.
On that note, I am going to the bathroom again. I will be back. You can move to the next thing, or at least start to.
I was going to read something. I wonder if Dalton has IBS tonight. Glad he's not here to hear me say that. Okay. Let's see. Alright. Superman by 5 for fighting. It's in to fly. I'm not that naive. I'm just out to find the better part of me. I'm more than a bird. I'm more than a plane. I'm more than someone. I'm more than some pretty face beside a train. And it's not easy to be me. I wish that I could cry, fall upon my knees, find a way to lie about a home I'll never see. It may sound absurd, but don't be naive. Even heroes have the right to bleed. It may be disturbed, but once you concede, even heroes have the right to dream. It's not easy to be me, up, up, and away, away from me. Well, it's alright. You can all sleep sound tonight. I'm not crazy or anything. I can't stand to fly. I'm not that naive. Men weren't meant to ride with neat clouds between their knees. I'm only a man in a silly red sheet, digging for kryptonite on this one-way street. Only a man in a funny red sheet, looking for special things inside of me. Inside of me, yeah, inside of me. I'm only a man in a funny red sheet. I'm only a man looking for a dream. And it's not easy to be me. All right. Secrets of the American Gods by Blind Guardian. Great Lord, your love's divine. We spread your grace, share your light. From the shores of hell we're burning, in purgatory's smell, went a preacher with a crucifix, brought mayhem and despair. So here comes a new God, be brave, a God spelled illusion, a breeding of sin, will carry life. Come share the disgrace, come share our pain. Somehow we're not one, yet somehow we're the same. Not now strong in bloom, it shall begin, soon forgotten, weathering. Hail, nice to meet you, another Newman stranger. I'm so glad you have made it. Somehow you've made it. Welcome to the promised land. There are no sights, there are no miracles. Shadows bear no names. You should not reveal. Join the American gods. The secrets of the American gods. Transform to infinity. No one cares for names. You can't escape. Better hide now. The secrets of the American gods. So when I look upon the misery, who would not sacrifice a son? My son, it's now done. We share our tricks, we share our foes. Discorded plans, distorted tunes. His dripping blood feeds what this land needs. Life creeping back into, sadly to say, but oh, there is no guidance. But so bright, your blazing starlight. And we are watching you, stranger in a newborn land of homeless gods and worn out miracles. On these fields of crows, you should not reveal. Join the American gods. The secrets of the American gods. Transform to infinity. Better bow down, praise the new lords. The secrets of the American gods. Take a look at yourself. Oh, behold, here's another trick. But now enlight our path in glory. It's time to close your eyes. I shall live almost insubstantial. Resurrect these moments gone. Contemplate desire and eternal flames burning down. Don't be scared. Follow the pain. On a lifeless tree, blackbirds singing. Behold your father of violence, the one-eyed God. It's sad. I thought you'd know that the greatest liar is telling you eternal truth. I thought you'd know that I'm your master, stranger in an unknown land of roaring silence, dead-end miracles. I will now reveal the secret of the American gods, transform to infinity. The moment is right, you shall cry out the secrets of the American gods. Yes, we travel all alone. A new play, a new scene. Dripping blood seals the deal. When we enter a new world, stranded, we are wandering. Time means nothing. To the American gods, no more sorrows. Praise the American gods. You are burning, yes, you are burning. Oh, you must conquer your fear. You better save yourself, but now obey the American gods. You better save yourself. Okay. Alright. Okay. Alright. Beautiful Stranger by Devil's Carnival. Reckless creatures always want another find, stealing features, each a diamond to be mined. There are facets at stake and crooks on our necks. We're like moths to the flame, get ready and set. Now tarry no longer, let's burn one another. We're one and we're twain. Now let's play a game. Hello, 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 beautiful stranger. How familiar the danger, slipping into the shadows. 'Tis true, 'tis true, 'tis true. Celebrities always do. Us in our shadows too. High stakes, 3 shakes, no breaks. Triple the wager. 3 clicks in the chamber. 3 chances to claim her. By the book, by hook, by rook. Shadows take all, my pet. My, what a strange duet. Shadow takes all. Cunning creatures slither front and slither back. Double dealers, double up for the attack. I could say that I'm hurt, but it wouldn't be true. The knife in my back reminds me of you. You're my beautiful stranger. The game is afoot. It's the Shadow's domain, so don't pussyfoot. Shoot. Um, okay. Grief by Sir Patrick by Sir Sean Patrick Flannery. Where is your little son lost, John? Tears, John. Bruised in the rain with his overalls torn, with one shoe off and one shoe on. Tears, John. And where will your little son sleep, John? Under the smokestacks, under the heap, under the tent where the canopy leaks. Tears, John. You're drowning in the grief of Jupiter's water. Let me open my teeth and cradle you there. There's a bed for the boy and a rope for the father, both orphaned by heaven where no child is spared. To who will your little son pray, John? Dark are the strangers that sleep on the train. There's blood on their cots and bones on their plate. Tears, John. Who then will tend to the sheep, John, while he treads in the place where the vicious gods preach, where claws come and sharpened on wolves in white fleece? Tears, John. Tears, John. You're drowning in the grief of Jupiter's water. Let me open my teeth and cradle you there. There's a bed for the boy and a room for the father, both orphaned by heaven where no child is spared. Swing from my limb and render your tears. The more that you shed, the deeper he nears. His 2 little hands push a chair from your feet, drowning your beautiful grief. Can't be saved by fable. Gather round, sinners. There's plenty of room for you here at the Hasbin Hotel. Just please leave your ticket, shoes, and souls at the door. What do you do when everything you love is
Okay, I'm back. Give me 1 second.
Alright, I'll keep reading. What do you do when everything you love is kind of fucked up? You seek redemption, baby, please, you're not alright, you're blood drunk. He's the devil that you always wanted, and he's right on your shoulder. Leave the past behind you, 'cause it's over, and we're not getting older. I built my home in hell, it's just a place that I know well. My heart will never beat the same, I know I can't be saved. I'm underneath your spell, in every tale that I could tell. All the pages read the same, and I know I can't be saved. Now that's the spirit. You're in hell, you delinquent fuck. You can try all you want, but you're destined to burn. It's funny sometimes I see the light from up above, and I think it could be better down here for us if we weren't afraid to look.
Okay. And now, speaking of Husband Hotel, which I assume is why you.
I wasn't. There was a. It was longer to that, but yeah, we can go. That's an Alistair song, actually. It's a fan song.
Which one this time?
Can't Be Saved. You wouldn't like it. It's like a rock kind of song.
That doesn't really fit Alistair's character either, but everybody loves the Radio Demon, so fair enough, I suppose.
You came in when I was in the middle of it. I think if you heard it through, you might. Be fair, this was made like only when season 1 was out, so we didn't know anything about it. Okay.
I am curious how the revelations in season 2 are going to affect people's fan songs for Alistair. There.
All right, this is from dailymail.co.uk. Written by Melody Fletcher. Published November 9th, 2025. Absolutely disgusting and blasphemic cartoon returns for second series despite parents begging for it to be banned for sex, violence, and profanity like they've never seen before. Motherfucker, it's an adult animated series.
Yeah. It's not for kids just because it's animated. They're in the immortal words of Adam Savage, well, there's your problem. And you would think people would know this because, Family Guy, The Simpsons, South Park, American Dads, Brickleberry, just all, like, are we seriously going to act like the idea of an adult cartoon is not, like, are we seriously going to act like that idea hasn't been normalized? But they sing in it. That means it has to be for kids, right? Yeah, no. Musicals are not necessarily for children either. It's very obviously playing with that kind of classic Disney aesthetic. Hence why the Princess of Hell is like the main character. But it's it at best like parodying those things in order to make a more adult series of points here.
Well, I'm also going to point out there are like darker, more adult themed musicals. Like I've brought it up many times because I think it's genuinely good. Repo, the Genetic Opera, or The Devil's Carnival.
Sweeney Todd, the Death Note musical.
Are we talking the actual play, or are we talking the movie?
Both.
Because the play kind of plays it more comedic than.
Fair, but still, probably it's still when you get right down to it, it's about people baking people into pies and then consuming them. So.
Fair enough.
Like anyone who's going to bitch and moan and complain about Has-Been is going to bitch and moan and complain about Sweeney Todd, because some people have nothing better to do with their lives than suck the joy out of everyone else's life. Because when I don't understand something, that means that thing should be banned and I shouldn't have to ever deal with it. Say the authoritarian cretins.
Okay. Moving on, or anything else?
Yep, moving on.
All right. Amazon Prime series Has-Been Hotel returns for a second season despite the fact parents have begged for it to be banned. I've not heard anything about this, to be fully honest. I don't really care one way or the other.
And again, it's not a explicitly children's show, my dudes. Like, if you let your children watch it because you're cool parents, that's one thing. And frankly, I think kids are drawn to things that aren't explicitly for them because things that are made explicitly for them tend to be so ridiculously over-sanitized. But
I'll be right back.
If you wind up letting them watch it out of ignorance rather than like liberty or libertarian or if you don't let them watch it because you're a cool, open-minded parent, but you let them watch it because it's animated and they're singing, so obviously that must make it for kids. Then you are the problem. Your kids are actually probably smarter than you because being exposed to things that actually challenge you and push your boundaries a little bit in safe doses is actually good for their development. And you being a prudish shrew is very much a problem. But again, just because it's a musical that's animated doesn't mean it's necessarily for kids.
I'm back.
Anyway, yeah, moving on.
The series, which follows the Princess of Hell, Charlie, as she and her friends try to save the souls of the damned by helping sinners find redemption and enter heaven, came out on October 29th. So I want to point this out. I'm sorry, it's my criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if it's criticism, but all the discussions I've heard of Hazbin Hotel, like in terms of characters and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Charlie's kind of the last one I ever hear anything about.
Yeah, because she's probably the most boring member of the cast, and or sometimes the most annoying element of the cast. Because she's Disney princess coded, she kind of has to almost be naive. And of course, Lucy, sheltering his daughter, and Lilith possibly brainwashing her daughter with hypnotic song bullshit, probably doesn't help matters in universe otherwise.
Alright. The musical cartoon has been criticized by Guardians for their depictions of violence, social issues, and sexual. Okay. They're in hell, so
Yeah,
shit's
it's
kind
a show. It's a show about hell. What were you expecting?
But also, why is depiction? Well, okay. To be fair, when social issues ever get brought up in media, it's kind of hard to depiction of it because there's a lot more like nuance and conflicting like things about those social issues that can't really be properly discussed or developed or explored without it becoming like overtly what's the word
Heavy-handed.
yeah.
Also, here's the thing, and I have seen many actually based Christians come to this conclusion with regards to Hazbin Hotel. The explicit premise, like the central core of the story, is about how a lot of this behavior is bad and should be redeemed through the process of self-improvement. It's a story. Now, mind you, that isn't the only iron in the fire, so to speak, of Hazbin Hotel. But a lot of actually thoughtful Christians who actually don't just knee-jerk ban authoritarian moral police everything they find conflicting, point out that Hazbin Hotel is good actually because of its element of redemption and the idea of self-improvement and seeking a better version of yourself.
As the token Christian here, I know I'm not the most avid
proponent.
No, it's not participant. Practitioner. I'm gonna stick with practitioner, I guess. I'm not the most avid of Christians, but I still have it, and I'm gonna say this. Like, it's kind of a two thing here. I don't mind Hazbin Hotel. I think it's actually pretty cool. I actually kind of, sort of, was trying to get Dalton into it originally when it was just the pilot.
Mhm.
Never did until you figured it out for yourself.
It took my friend Nick telling me about Alistair to get me into Has-Been.
Mm.
Because if I had a nickel for every time I found kinship and camaraderie with a extremely cultured serial killing puppet mastering mastermind with extremely eccentric old world tendencies, I would have 2 nickels, which of course isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. For those that don't know me well enough to know by now, the two very similar characters in question are
Hannibal
Dr. Hannibal Lecter and Alistair the Radio Demon. Yes. So yeah,
And
it took my.
every time Dalton is mentioned that he has a connection with the character, because by his own account, he claims to be a sociopathic near supervillain, I would have about 100 nickels by now. Or you know what? Actually, probably a lot more. But I haven't.
Yeah. No, you could probably open a small like savings account on all the nickels you would have, sir.
But okay. The thing I was gonna say was, I don't mind Has Been Hotel. I think just because I'm also a writer, I don't really. I'm not really into it because it has too many writing flaws
Mm-hmm.
that it just kind of turns me off to it. And the second thing, all those motherfuckers that, yes, I'm gonna use language. You sanctimonious cuntwads.
Well done.
Those guys who claim to be Christian or any denomination of a Judeo-Abrahamic faith that are getting all pissy in their little panties about Has Been Hotel, claiming for its cancellation and all that. You do realize that how to best say this, I guess. Right, yeah, those guys are okay. You know what? Fuck it. I'm not gonna try and be respectful here. It's generally infuriates me with this. Those who are super judgmental and claim it's against God and all shit. That's not true Christianity at all in any form of the word. You've greatly misinterpreted the message that you claim to spread and believe, when in fact you're just being closed-minded, grouping, isolationist jackasses that want to stand upon your false ivory tower, pointing down at everyone else and saying you are unworthy.
And
when in
not,
fact, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
When in fact, that is the complete opposite of the message that was spread by the progenitor of the faith that you claim to be a part of.
Yeah, I don't remember if it's Matthew or if it's Mark, but in one of those two books, book 6, verses 5 and 6, Jesus explicitly warns against hypocrites who grandstand and proselytize for public approval rather than doing so quietly in the privacy of their own homes. I believe the quote is something along the lines of, "Surely I say unto you, emulate not the hypocrites, for they already have all the reward they are going to receive. Instead, go into your homes and quietly nurture your relationship with the Father there," or something along those lines. I realize I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, one of the sets of people that Jesus called out, are the people who essentially pull the quad god bullshit, the public proselytism with speakers nonsense.
Right.
Kind of like y'all are doing. Also, another verse that springs to mind when this comes up is the surely I say unto you that many people who say, Lord, Lord, shall come up to me upon the final day, and I shall look upon them and say, I never knew you. The idea there being there are plenty of people who use the moral authority of Jesus without having any understanding of his beliefs, positions, or motives, and so forth. So there's that.
And some people would wonder why I don't go to church anymore.
Yep, it. Whatever your religious path happens to be, or whatever your spiritual path happens to be, you are always so much better served by finding this shit out for yourself and developing relationship with whichever being you feel, the desire to relate to on your own terms.
I'm also under the general impression that if God wants me to know something from him, he's going to say it in a way that I know he's speaking to me. I don't need to listen to some guy sitting at a podium wasting an hour of my day about how he interprets the Bible. Just like, but enough. But also, I want to point out, most Christians actually don't really get to properly quote the Bible. I know you paraphrased it, but you're not even a Christian.
No.
And like, you were at the very least able to have some recollection of the Bible to reference.
Yeah. Because I've actually read the fucking thing. I can't get chapter and verse right on the first go, and I can't quite get the exact wording, but I can reference specific passages and specific details of the thing, not to mention, because I am a historical and anthropologically minded motherfucker, I often can look at things in the context that they were originally written in, and not in the revisionist history bullshit that so many preachers insist upon making.
Also want to point this out. Some things I've recently learned from just general, looking into it myself. Jesus was a funny guy.
I don't exactly know what you're referring to there.
Well, no, if you actually read the passages of some of the acts he's done, the extra mile thing, that was actually kind of him being petty in a way, because the Roman soldiers who would have Jews, right? Or was it Hebrew?
Well, I mean, semantics, but go on.
I just wanted to make sure I was getting that right specifically. If they were to carry that stuff longer than the mile that they were required, the soldiers actually could have gotten in trouble by their commanding officers for quote unquote forcing. So, in a way, it wasn't I actually read. I know you say you have read it. I would assume a while ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually
mostly just because I find the history and anthropology surrounding the documents more interesting than the documents. That also may be because of the translations that most people have access to. I've actually recently looked into this, and the Ethiopian Bible is surprisingly more thorough than most versions of the Bible, because a lot of the texts that are apocryphal in other versions of the Bible are left in the Ethiopian one. Like, we get the expanded version of Daniel that features Bel and the dragon. We get some, at least, of the Book of Enoch. We get the Book of Job, which I know is in some other versions of the Bible, but that one and its canonicity goes on and off over the
Yeah,
depending on which version you're reading and so on.
I'm not surprised Ethiopia has a more thorough version of the Bible, given how how big it actually kind of was for that nation. Granted, also the kind of rumor that they actually do have the Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark, yeah. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if they did, because of all of the mainstream Christianities, I think I still prefer the traditional Martinist order approach to Christianity, and I still prefer the Meister Eckhart version of Christianity and the various esoteric versions of Christianity to most mainstream versions. But of the mainstream versions, Ethiopian Christianity is far more comfortable with the actual esotericism and mysticism of the Bible, and brings more of the actual context of the faith into the faith, which is nice.
About maybe a year or so ago, I had learned that there were Ethiopian Crusader, Templar Knights, or Knights Templar in the Crusades, which is genuinely fascinating,
Yeah, Ethiopia is probably the most Christian country in Africa. And again, given the rumor that they might actually fucking have the Ark,
I'm going to be fully honest, I don't necessarily disagree that they might have had the Ark for a good while, but I think with the construction of the Vatican and the kind of position of power that basically Christianity holds within Italy, right?
Yeah.
I kind of assume they would have moved it in a couple of centuries ago or so.
The problem with that is we have information on people who in our lifetimes claim to have been exposed to the Ark, and I remember a History Channel documentary where I think it was tied into the Indiana Jones franchise a little bit. It was like the actual history and lore behind Indiana Jones or whatever was the premise of the documentary. We have Ethiopian high priests who develop cataracts, and when asked about it, they will say the Ark did this to me. And if you know anything about the Ark of the Covenant, the exposure to it had some really interesting consequences that do read almost as quasi-radioactive. So, one, the Vatican frequently has its head up its ass, which, but two, the fact that we still have people in living memory in Ethiopia who are tasked with taking care of the Ark that develop things like cataracts or like cancer or those sorts of things that are in the actual text of the Bible supposed to be repercussions of being long-term exposed to the Ark. I find their claim to have it extremely convincing, frankly.
I don't know. It's just if the Vatican City, or Rome, the Vatican itself is basically a nation on itself. It's massive.
Well, I mean, so is the Eastern Orthodox Church, and so on.
Given how expansive it is, which I am sure it holds many secrets of Christianity or the Abrahamic faiths, really. I don't know. Just to me, it would seem logical. Granted, when you're in positions of power like that, logic kind of goes out the fucking window.
Also, I don't think we've ever seen the Catholic Church go to war with the Ethiopian Church, as far as I am aware. I could be very wrong on that. It is not something specific that I have looked into. But
Well, no, I didn't assume that they would have taken it or anything, or like a war or anything would have happened there. I'm just saying, like, they would have moved it to keep it secured and contained in basically their stronghold of power, which would have been the Vatican. That was
well, the problem there is that the Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church are separate organizations. They actually believe that each other are wrong about their interpretations of the Bible. So I don't see much like inter-branch cooperation between the three of them.
fair enough.
You would think the most financially stable and the most like long-serving strain of Christianity would be the best place to defend it, but that would require the Ethiopian Orthodox and the Eastern Orthodox and the Catholics to get along with each other for 5 minutes, and short of the Muslims doing things to cause another crusade, I don't think that's likely to happen anytime soon.
I am still in shock we got an American Pope in our lifetime.
I'm less shocked about that and more shocked that it's an extremely liberal American Pope, because America is filled to bursting with a lot of very fundamentalist approaches to things, so it surprises me that an American Pope wasn't
The Pope
more
before
fire
was
and brimstone about shit.
The Pope before him was also pretty cool, from what I remember hearing about that guy.
He definitely brought things to a left-wing perspective, although cool, I think, is a bit of a stretch, because he also unironically espoused elements of communism while being the Pope, which just, no.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I could have, well, again, I had heard stories of like him really performing like great acts of kindness and service onto the people. So
Yeah, he was a very open pope, but he was also a very controversial pope because he combined elements of Christianity with elements of communism, and thus a lot of Catholics ended up recanting papal infallibility because of so many weird things that Pope Francis said. And this pope is also seemingly trending in something regarding that direction, although the new pope's thing appears to be combining environmentalism and Christianity, which seems a little bit less toxic, but still, I feel bad for the like hardcore Catholics out there, which is ironic considering most of them would probably want to go full Inquisition on my ass, but I happen to know a lot of really cool Catholics, Jim Butcher being one of them, Dragon Turtle, our frequent commenter, also being one of them, Maranya, Valkonen, most people know from Anglin streams, also Catholic.
Wait, Giant Turtle's Catholic?
Yeah.
Oh, I never knew that. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, there are a lot of really cool Catholics out there.
Anyway,
and just from a selfish point of view, this is a controversial opinion among the occult community, but it simply cannot be overlooked that if it were not for the Abrahamic faith, we would not have a lot of the grimoires that we do. And the Catholic Church in particular had this thing called the clerical necromantic underground, which was basically a bunch of monks and priests and shit would use and write grimoires in their spare time because they believed it was part of their authority given to them by God to command angels and demons and things. So while the relationship between the church and the occult has been rather strained over the centuries, shall we be very diplomatic and call it, it must be said that a lot of the grimoires are adapted from Middle Eastern documents and more specifically adapted to a Catholic sensibility. That's why scholastic magic and the aforementioned clerical necromantic underground were things.
Done.
Yeah. Back on topic though, seriously.
Despite parents calling for it to be banned. The show, which embraces all things dark and controversial, has made its return. Following the first season, which involved storylines about porn production, assassinations, and even cannibalism, viewers took to Google to share their grievances. One wrote, "Where do I even begin? Not only is the show satanic, fuck off, but it's also a huge bad influence to all of society." No, motherfucker, you writing this is a bad influence to all of society.
Yeah, and by the way, and I'm sure a lot of the aforesaid cool Christians will back me up on this. It doesn't say the porn industry is a good thing. There's an entire subplot in season 1 and again in season 2 about how the porn industry is really, really quite bad for you. There was literally a song about it called Poison. And again, the main premise of the show is Charlie Morningstar trying to redeem these sinners so that they can go to heaven and be redeemed of their sins. Which, yes, does include her frequently trying to get Angel to indulge less in drugs and sex work. So, even from a Christian perspective, which, you know, I was raised a Methodist before doing my own fucking research and deciding to become a polytheistic occultist, who now trends more even still into a like animist direction. But being that as it may, like even from a Christian perspective, and I can tell you that there are a lot of Christians who will defend Hazbin Hotel. The story being about redemption and about how toxic and evil things like sex work, heavy drug use, and hedonism are and can be for a person's soul. There are quite a lot of Christians who have no problem with Hazbin Hotel because it doesn't frame drugs, sex, and rock and roll to necessarily be good things. They frame them as things that need to be redeemed from a person's soul so that they can ascend and go to heaven. And no, it really isn't all that satanic because it doesn't frame hell as a place people want to be. It frames hell to be a place of judgment and fire that hopefully purifies the soul so that they can then ascend to heaven eventually. Granted, some characters are going to have a harder time of it than others. There really is no plausible way that Alistair the Radio Demon, as much as I like him, is ever going to be redeemed, unless they want to explore how someone can be redeemed and still not necessarily a good person at the same time. But yeah, the story is heavily reliant on a very Christian concept of redemption and purification of the soul. Hell in the Helliverse operates more like the Catholic notion of purgatory or the Islamic conception of hell as a temporary place of purging your sins and then ascending to heaven afterwards, than it does hell as an aspirational thing. The most you can say is some of the characters in hell are likable or interesting, but you could say the very same thing about heaven. Like, I saw a lot of people pushing back after season 1 that heaven is always portrayed as the bad guy, but that's simply not true. Sarah is portrayed as being conflicted, and Emily is at best being framed as being naive. The only people that are considered bad in heaven are the angels who actively take sadistic pleasure in exterminating sinners.
Right. I also want to point this out. Just my own little it's not a headcanon, but a theory I'd had about The Exorcist that I shared with Dalton not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're actually officially angels. Just like how mortals, while they call themselves demon, I don't think they're officially demons. They're just
not in the existentially objective sense, at least. Yeah.
Sinners. They're sinners. They just take on demonic forms to represent their sins and stuff. Well, usually
their sins, their nature, the way they died. It can be a number of things that influence it.
The theory I had proposed regarding the Exorcist specifically, because they seemed very different comparative to like other angels, like like the angels in the council or Sarah and Emily, because they're seraphim and all that. The Exorcists strike me as mortal souls that I believe, at least, again, this is my own personal theory. I believe they were victims in their life on Earth, like that were harmed by sinners, and still had like an anger in them for that. And
Resentment.
Huh?
Resentment.
Yes. And thus wanted to seek retribution, which heaven can be known for, that, like, specifically the Old Testament. And thus they were, like, I modified or grafted with the appearance of specific angels that had a humanoid form, so they could punish, basically get revenge for the pain they suffered in life by effectively sinners.
Even in traditional or angelology, angels, like the category of angels, like generic human-looking angels, are actually the lowest choir of angels according to traditional angelology.
Yeah, and again, I don't think the Exorcists were like. I think Vox is getting. Sorry, that's a scene 2 thing. Never mind. But I do think the Exorcists weren't the biggest problems. They were like basically like propaganda to strike fear in hell, poorly, I would say. But I don't think they're the major force of heaven, and I don't know why heaven is treating what is going on in season 2 as a big thing. If it was to be a more traditional, biblically accurate heaven, I would say. But it's neither here nor there.
Well, yeah, that gets into the questions of like lore and how much you bring in like the Kabbalist stuff or like the stuff from the more esoteric versions of Christianity, which the Helleverse is actually want to do. Like we see the demons of the Ars Goetia at least referenced in Helleverbos. We see the whole idea of Lilith and Adam being the first humans as opposed to Adam and Eve comes from the alphabet of Ben Zera, as does the base concept that I think Dizzy Pop used to create the idea of the extermination in the first place, which is after Lilith and Adam had a falling out because he wanted her to submit to him, but because Lilith was created alongside Adam in line with Genesis 1, which, okay, this is the reason why the Lilith story exists, for those that don't know. There are actually 2 separate creation events in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. In Genesis 1, it says, quote, "From the dust of the earth he created them, male and female he created them." And in Genesis 2, that's where you get the story of Adam being alone in the garden and God opting to create woman from his rib. And so the Jewish rabbis, through a tradition known as midrash, or essentially exposition, tied together the first creation in Genesis 1 and the folkloric idea of Lilith, who was a cradle-robbing demoness, to tell the story of the alphabet of Ben Zera. I think it's also referenced in The Life of Adam and Eve, which is another sort of para-canonical text of the idea that Lilith was actually Adam's first wife, who was created from the dust equally as he was, and it was for this reason that she refused to submit to him, which led to her being kicked out of the garden. Whereupon, again, tying it back to the like folkloric concept of Lilith as this cradle-robbing demoness, the idea was that the reason why Lilith was this cradle-robbing demoness was because she wanted revenge against the children of Adam and Eve for shunning her from the garden and preventing her from having offspring of her own. Although she does eventually have some offspring of her own with the Malahamavet, or the Angel of Death, known as Samael, which in traditional Jewish folklore is where we get the incubi and succubi from. They're supposedly the children of Lilith and Samael after Lilith left the garden of her own accord. Also, in the Alphabet of Ben-Zira, like I was saying, I think it was a major inspiration behind the idea of the exterminations in Hazbin Hotel, because in the Alphabet of Ben-Zira, after Lilith takes her shit and goes away from the garden, and she shacks up with Samael, God decrees that for every day Lilith is gone, 1,000 of her offspring with Samael, 1,000 incubi and succubi, will be hunted down and destroyed by the cherubim, who are the warrior angels of heaven. So it's very possible that Vivzie Pop, much as she is at least loosely familiar with the Ars Goetia to create Helluva, is borrowing at least some information from Jewish folklore and the Alphabet of Ben-Zira and the life of Adam and Eve to inform the storyline about the extermination and about, Adam and Lilith being a couple before Adam and Eve were, and so on. Yep, moving on.
Okay. Another share of this show is straight blasphemy. Y'all, I get it's a cartoon and it's not real, but it don't matter.
No, it very much A, does matter, and B, being blasphemous is only a problem if you have your head so wedged in your Bible that you actually ignore the context behind it. And by the way, a lot of translations of the Bible straight leave shit out or change the way something was worded, because most of the texts of the Bible are either written in Aramaic, in Hebrew, or in Greek, or in Latin. Problem being, the common language for most of the Western world, for most of history, was English. And so when the Bible was eventually translated, you wound up having to translate 4 incredibly different languages into English, which left a lot of room for translation error, especially when a lot of the translators were biased. Like, for example, in the King James Version, he explicitly forbade the translation of certain words that meant tyrant into tyrant, because he was a paranoid fucker who was worried that if the first English translation of the Bible called out tyrants, his subjects wouldn't be loyal or compliant to him, because he was afraid of being viewed as a tyrant, because he was paranoid, which ironically probably did result in him being semi-tyrannical due to that paranoia, in the same way that Richard Nixon was quite tyrannical because of the whole Watergate paranoia scandal. So, yeah. There's that.
I also wanted to point out that was a very grammatically incorrect post.
Yeah.
But also that feels like, that the mistranslation and the version of the Bible not having everything, like it's not complete, basically, left out all that. That feels like it should be blasphemous.
Yep, but very often people would just ignore that shit. Like, a lot of people will swear by the King James Version of the Bible as the only true translation of the Bible. But once you actually look into the things that led to him translating that version that way, or rather led to him telling his translators to translate certain things that way. It really gives light to that. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of the texts that are only viewed as apocrypha in other versions are actually included in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, which, in my opinion, makes it the most legitimate of all the mainstream versions. Again, I favor some of the more esoteric versions, like the traditional Martinist order, like Meister Eckhart's take on things, like a lot of the esoteric versions of Christianity, and like some of the more mystical variations on Pentecostal, with, obviously, once again, shouting out the Catholics who gave us a large swath of the Grimoire tradition and the clerical necromantic underground and scholastic magic and so on. But obviously, I, being an occultist, am going to favor the more occult versions of Christianity. But of the mainstream versions of Christianity, I consider that between the Protestant version, the Catholic version, the Eastern Orthodox version, and the Ethiopian one, I personally think that the Ethiopian one is probably the most legitimate of the mainstream versions.
All right. Hey, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Just because I'm starting to feel it, and I kind of actually do have to go get up early.
Yeah, we should move things along so we can get this done a little bit quicker instead of devolving into sidebars.
Well, then also I think we're gonna have to call it after this one, and we'll just do the last one next week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Eric commented, "Parents beware, this show is absolutely disgusting. It is filled with sex, violence, and profanity like I've never seen before." Motherfucker, have you not watched any modern TV like in the last decade?
Or even modern adult cartoons, Family Guy, Brickleberry, Rick and Morty, modern Simpsons.
Yeah, I'll make a defense on Family Guy. Granted, recent seasons have upped it, but it's on a network, so they have certain limitations.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of the aforesaid adult cartoons, by the standards of like adult cartoons, Has-Been Hotel is very wholesome. Part of that is the musical element, mind you, but compared to like latter season Family Guy or Brickleberry or even quite a lot of Rick and Morty, Has-Been Hotel is remarkably unnihilistic and remarkably wholesome when you get right down to it.
You know what? I don't disagree with that. Again, it's just like I think it could be written better.
It could. There are definitely flaws. A lot of those flaws I attribute to the fact that VivziePop wanted there to be 16 episode seasons, and for some reason A24 and Amazon agreed that there should only ever be 8 per season, which is just sad. But
that's fair. I'm just saying, like, I don't
but
know.
there are definitely imperfections in the writing that could definitely be better addressed. But
because the pacing itself isn't too bad, but I get your point on the episode length. That does suck.
Mm-hmm.
I still think I don't want to say this because it does sound rather rude, but I'm trying to find. I feel more experienced writers could be able to work with it and still make it cohesive and more.
I think it's very worth noting that VivziePop is still a very young writer, and that's
fair. I'm just saying, like,
and this is her passion project that she spent like 10 years begging someone to pick up.
Right. Okay. But still, like, I feel like, to be fair, I understand that I'm giving it some leeway, but I still feel like it should be held up to a specific standard.
It should, and there are definitely criticisms to levy at VivziePop, even knowing her inexperience and even knowing that she's very hesitant to change any of her original ideas because she had to go to the mat for them for 10 years before somebody was willing to give her a shot. And I think she will probably grow as a writer. Like, we know from behind the scenes interviews and stuff that she has made changes between the creation of season 1 and the creation of season 2 based on feedback she got from the fans, feedback she got from the internet in general, things that she's had different thoughts about since originally making the story and so on. So I do have faith that she will improve as a creative,
Okay.
and I'm willing to overlook at least some of her faults because the promise is definitely there, and because she is coming from such a good place, which is something that I can't say for a lot of people working in Hollywood in today's day and age.
Fair
Cough, cough, Mindy Kaling, cough, cough, Daniel Kibblesmith, cough, cough, Leslie Headland, etc.
Daniel Kibble. Who?
He was the guy that did the New Warriors that we ended up having to like rewrite as we were reacting to the trailer for it.
Yeah. I mean, I forgot what we came up with there, but
That's why it's a wonderful thing that the internet allows us to record things for posterity.
to be fair, I don't really like listening to my voice, so.
Fair. I don't really like my own voice either. I always think my voice comes off as so much more nasally on stream than it does in my head. But
Oh, I feel like I always sound like a higher pitch when I listen to myself.
yeah, I'm sure it does sound lower to you in your head. It's not as nasally as my voice though, so I will give you that. My voice always infuriates me by being so much more nasal when I listen to recordings and shit of myself.
All
And
right.
it's like 2.5 octaves higher than it sounds in my head, which is annoying.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. Just
Yeah, finishing this article so Brainstormer can collapse.
I'm already on my bed, dude.
Okay, good. So you won't literally fall to the ground on
Yeah.
stream or something.
Like that's
As
literally
funny as that would be to me, because my legs barely work on a good day anyway. So it'd be
Yeah.
vaguely nice to see it happen to somebody else for a change, lol.
However, some viewers took it even further by starting a petition on change.org titled "Urge Prime Video to remove Has-Been Hotel from its catalog." Things were taken even further when people complained on Common Sense Media, which is a source for entertainment and technology recommendations for families. Someone wrote, "Kids should not watch Has-Been Hotel. It had way too much swearing, sex violence, inappropriate humor.
It's
It
not.
is an adult cartoon, you dumbasses. If your kids see the fucking cartoon, that's on fucking you. Okay?
Yeah.
Stop blaming
you
everyone else for your incompetence and bullshit.
Yeah, not to mention ignorance, because this is coming from a very normie place of, well, obviously it's animated. That means it's perfectly all right for kids. Yeah, no, it's not like Has Been Hotel is the first adult cartoon ever made or something. Latter season Simpsons is more adult than or more edgy than Has Been Hotel. Rick and Morty is more edgy than Has Been Hotel. Current year Family Guy is more edgy than Has Been Hotel.
Don.
BoJack Horseman is infinitely more edgy and nihilistic than Has Been Hotel. Like,
So also in like the 70s and 80s, there were like these weird experimental adult animated movies that were really niche, mind you. They weren't like super popular, but
that's why I didn't include them. I wanted to pick mainstream examples to emphasize the point that
I'm pointing those out, that adult animation has been around for a long enough time that it shouldn't really be a shock that shit exists.
And that's not even pointing out the obvious counter argument to this, which is one word: anime. It exists.
Dude, that fucking shit. That really is like the biggest. Hold on. The biggest like false advertising.
Counterexample.
Huh?
Oh, never mind. You went a place I wasn't expecting you to go. Go on.
Well, false advertising because, like some horror anime have like this really cutesy art style, but it just gets fucking brutal and dark and twisted consistent. Yep. You know, it's like honestly, I have seen more fucked up anime like stuff, and I have seen like the cutesy high school. I mean, to be fair, a lot of anime does high school.
Have you ever heard of Redo of Healer?
Yeah, I did not. I heard about that. Like, I think did we not cover an article about it last year? Or?
We may have done. Redo of Healer is just like it makes the boys look like super friends. Holy fucking shit. Redo of Healer.
I never really, well, to be fair, from the things I had heard of it, I never really wanted to check it out, mind you.
It is like I know we in general oppose nihilism, but it is one of the most darkly nihilistic, fucked up things I think I've ever heard of.
Did you watch it?
I have seen bits of it. After a certain point, I had to turn it off because it was not good for me.
Really? This is the first time I've genuinely heard you say something like that.
I keep saying that I'm gonna get back into it eventually, but I just fuck me, Redo of Healer. It's just, oh god.
It has to, honestly, it has to be bad for you to consider that.
It makes Saw look like an escape room movie or some shit.
Why are we talking about those like escape room, like those like most recent movie things, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen those, but I think I get what you're saying though. Huh?
It makes Squid Game look like a Animal Farm adaptation or some shit. I don't even know what would be an appropriate analogy, because it's so like, there's nihilism and then there's whatever the fuck the writers of Redo of Healer were on.
Well, huh. Anyway, let's move on before we really spiral there, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another claim that there was way too many sex jokes and swearing, and worst of all, kids younger than 10 are watching this. We need to do something. But again, that is
your responsibility as the parent to not be the dumbest of normie parents and look at something animated that has music in it and go, oh, it's animated, it has music in it, must be for children. Derp.
Seriously, like, how the do you not read the descriptions of those shows before you play them?
Yeah, they explicitly say that the show takes place in hell and explicitly follows the daughter of Lucifer and Lilith. I do not know how in the fuck you can possibly be that ignorant. Unless your ignorance is so complete that you literally just do not read the descriptions of things that you let your children watch, which I'm sorry, but one, if your children are exposed to adult content, there's a hell of a lot worse that they could be exposed to than Has Been Hotel. Has Been Hotel is actually probably a pretty good, like, teenager's first adult show if you are willing to let them play with that. But two, you just straight up don't vet the things that you show to your children. And frankly, if they're exposed to Has Been Hotel, they'll at least be more like mentally well adjusted than your just backwoods inbred ass. I'm sorry to be rude, but that's the level of just
Don,
of just like stupidity that we're dealing with here.
to be fair, I don't think you should be casting that kind of stone, given
No,
you grew up in.
and just for the record, I am from a rural place in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, so I actually can use those words because I know what a school so backwoods they give people the first day of hunting season off is like. Unironically, I think my high school does or did. So like I know what I'm talking about when I say this is some serious this is cousin fucking levels of stupid, folks.
Moving on.
Yep.
The show received an 18 age warning in the UK for depictions of strong sexual violence. Okay.
Yeah, no shit.
It should. Yeah, it should. Like, what the?
That's the other thing. Rating systems exist. Like, do you not look at the age rating of any of the shit you?
Next thing here. Prime Video also labels the show as an adult animated series, and it's clear that it's not suitable for children. Okay,
Yeah,
how
no
the
shit.
fuck did they miss it? How did they miss it? You know, like
we have the MPAA or whatever the TV equivalent of the MPAA is, and it's very clearly labeled. If they were false advertising it as for kids, I would actually be right there with you. But what it actually is a show for extremely traumatized, potentially gay or other gender non-conforming or sexuality non-conforming theater kids. It's a show for adult theater kids with identity issues and trauma. That's exactly who Has Been Hotel is for, and I can tell you that because most of the people involved in making the fucking thing are also adult theater kids who are working through their personal trauma and identity issues, such as they are.
So it's a show made specifically for you.
Especially when you consider the like apocryphal Bible lore and Jewish mysticism and shit that subtle references to it are like founded on and shit. Yeah, no. The only thing that could make Has Been Hotel more specifically targeted at me is if we find out the other gods and the other pantheons exist. Like that is the.
I think VisiPop did confirm that in somewhere. I can't remember where.
The question is, are we actually going to get it? Is the thing, because I know focusing on the lore of Hell specifically is a crucial part of the Helliverse, hence why it's the Helliverse. But yeah, that's the only thing Has Been Hotel could really realistically do to make the show more perfectly targeted at my ass. So
to be fair, I'm not sure we'll see them because she made a very big point to make it clear that
positions on God are just too controversial for her, which honestly is actually a pretty based response. Just no, I'm not fucking dealing with this bullshit. I'm just not going to bring it up. I'm going to leave it ambiguous and leave it to the viewers to make up their own fucking minds.
We did, yeah. Okay. Moving on.
Yep.
While a lot of viewers slam the series, it also has a vocal fan base who are quick to defend it. One positive review gushed: Has Been Hotel is a lively, upbeat, offbeat, dark that sets itself apart with its eclectic visual style.
That is an entirely fair review. That is a description of what the show is pretty damn well, yes.
Okay. The first series was a hit, earning a solid 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, and has continued to grow in popularity with a dedicated following. The first 2 episodes of the new 8-part series were released on October 28th, with the rest airing weekly thereafter. The Season 2 finale is set to air on 19th of November.
Yep, and just so everyone is aware, in case they're watching this after the fact, we are currently we're currently a week out from the finale of season 2. I personally think there's a lot of layers to Alistair's plan. I hope I am correct about this because there are so many ways in which his plan can be brought to fruition that would be awesome. I am slowly preparing myself to be let down a little bit by that, but I don't think even if I don't get everything I like from the finale, I doubt that it will be a huge letdown because I paid attention to the leaks of Hazbin Hotel, and I was definitely not on board with the idea of Alistair being owned by Rosie twist, but the actual execution saved it for me. It kind of fell in the same category as Agatha All Along or the Black Adam movie, where a lot of the ideas didn't sound good on paper, but the execution and the attention to detail saved it for me. So even if I don't get everything I want from episodes 7 and 8, I think whatever we do get for episodes 7 and 8 will probably be well executed enough that I'm willing to at least extend another season's worth of good faith to the show. Especially because like the first 3 episodes of season 2 were kind of just meh to me. But then episodes 4, 5, and 6 happened, which are frankly some of the best episodes of the entire fucking show. So like, damn. Just when I thought I was out, she pulled me back in, as the meme goes.
All right. I think we got some time. I'm standing up instead of laying on my bed, and I feel a little more energy at the moment. So,
huzzah! Brainstormer found his second wind.
Yeah. Okay. This from originally Variety.com. V for Vendetta TV series in the works at HBO is written by Joel Otterson. Published November 10th, 2025.
And now we're right back into the dear God, please let them not fuck this up, as we usually are with DC post. Actually, we've been this way since DC started trying to do the cinematic universe thing because Snyder fucked it up. Then there was the briefest of moments where the in between phase between Snyder and Gunn happened, and I thought there was at least good material there. And then James Gunn happened, but being that as it may, I am really, really worried about the new V for Vendetta adaptation because I'm terrified, and this is going to sound really counterintuitive, but I'm terrified that they're going to make it more like the original comic and less like the movie, and that is a mistake. It is a mistake because Alan Moore was a crazy Antifa-style anarcho-communist before it was cool to be a crazy Antifa-style anarcho-communist, and in the V for Vendetta movie, they wisely changed the political dynamic from anarcho-communism versus fascism, like it was in the comic, and moved to classical liberalism versus a kind of fascism that was born out of the Bush-era warmongering. And that made the movie infinitely better. So please, for the love of God, as counterintuitive as this is, resist the urge to make an accurate adaptation of the comic. Because Alan Moore occasionally needs to be on his meds. And V for Vendetta is a better concept and better realized in the movie than it was in the comic.
All right, moving on.
Yep.
V for Vendetta TV show is currently in development at HBO. Variety has learned exclusively. According to sources, Pete Jackson is attached to write the series adaptation. James Gunn and Peter Safran of DC Studios will executive produce, as well Ben Stephenson via Poison Pen and Leanne Klein of Wall to Mall Media, which is part of Warner Brothers Television.
Wait. Hold on. I may have spoken too soon. They got Peter Jackson to write the thing?
No, it says Pete Jackson, not Peter Jackson. I'm not sure if it's the same person or not.
Don't toy with me like this, HBO. Please tell me you actually got Peter Jackson to do this, because that would That would assuage a lot of my fears if Peter Jackson was involved.
Warner Brothers Television will produce. HBO and DC Studios declined to comment. Reps for Jackson did not immediately respond to Variety's request to comment. V for Vendetta began as a comic serial written by Alan Moore and illustrated by David Lloyd. It debuted in 1982 in the British anthology Warrior, with DC taking over publishing in 1988. The story is set in Britain in a dystopian, not too distant future in which the country is controlled by the fascistic Norse Fire Party. An anarchist named V, known for his distinctive Guy Fawkes mask, seeks to topple the government with the help of Evie Hammond, a young woman V rescued from the country's secret police. Should the V for Vendetta series move forward, it would be the latest DC Studios live-action show to find a home at HBO. Most famously, the premium cabler aired the drama The Penguin, starring Colin Farrell and Christine Milioti. The show served as a direct follow-up to Matt Reeves' The Batman and went to win 9 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Lead Actress in a limited series for Milioti, I think.
Frankly, I'm honestly kind of hoping it doesn't go anywhere, because the only thing that they could possibly do that the V for Vendetta movie hasn't done infinitely better would be to be more accurate to the comics, which would lead us with V being the Flag Smasher from Falcon and the Winter Soldier on steroids. And that it's a terrible idea. It is a terrible idea. The people who made the movie were right to change the political dynamic from anarcho-communism versus fascism to classical liberalism versus a kind of fascism that grew out of Bushite era warmongering.
HBO has also aired the critically. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Up next, HBO will air the drama series Lantern, starring Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre as Green Lantern's Hal Jordan and John Stewart. No premiere date has been set at this time, but is expected to premiere in early 2026. We still haven't gotten a trailer for it, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, if that Pete Jackson, that reference to Pete Jackson actually means Peter Jackson, a tiny fragment of my hopes will be rekindled here. But
Right.
Resist the urge to make it more like the comic. That is not a good idea.
HBO has also aired the critically acclaimed drama Watchmen, which served as a sequel to the original graphic novel created by Moore and Dave Gibbons. That show aired in 2019, however, 3 years prior to Gunn and Safran's appointment as the heads of DC's film and television business. Jackson previously wrote the Channel 4 series Somewhere Boy, which aired in 2022. He was nominated for the BAFTA TV Award for writing for a drama series for that show, while he also shared in its nomination for Best Drama Series. He is also the writer for the upcoming Sky Atlantic series The Death of Bunny Monroe, starring Matt Smith, which is based on the book of the same name by Nick Cave. Okay.
I don't know enough about either of those shows to tell you whether this is a good thing or not. And I still don't know if we're talking about Peter Jackson as in he of Lord of the Rings fame, or if this is a completely different guy that just happens to have a very similar name.
Hold on.
And most of my optimism at this point is hinging on Peter Jackson being involved. Because modern Hollywood is going to big up the fascism but hard, and probably, again, assuming they lean more into the original comic, are going to try to make V an Antifa superhero. It's such a bad idea. I know it's more accurate to what Alan Moore originally intended, but Alan Moore was a crazy anarcho-communist before it was cool to be a crazy anarcho-communist, and the Wachowskis and company did him a massive solid. I don't care how much he hates it, in changing the political zeitgeist for the movie.
It's not him.
Fuck. Well, we can always hope that it gets banished to the cutting room floor. I know I'm being kind of nihilistic here, but the only changes that they could make to the movie would be to make it more like the comic, and the comic was anarcho-communist. And
Right.
in 2025 or 2027 or 2028 or whenever this actually comes out, if they make it, trying to sell the audience on Antifa are the good guys actually is a terrible idea.
Right. So, all right. He is repped by UTA. V for Vendetta was adapted into a feature film in 2005. Hugo Weaving as V and Natalie Portman as Evie. James McTeague directed, with the Wachowskis writing the screenplay. The film received positive reviews from critics upon its release and went on to gross over $130 million worldwide. It has remained popular ever since. Warner Brothers set to bring the film back to theaters in November 2026 in honor of its 20th anniversary.
You're damn right. It maintained a positive a positive reputation all through the years, because that is unironically one of the top 5 comic adaptations or comic book movies ever fucking made. I watch it every year on the 5th of November, and I am not the only American for whom that is the case. Yes, Britain, we know it's Guy Fawkes and shit, but for Americans who have no, like, context for the Guy Fawkes thing, that movie is so good, it made a bunch of Americans who have no idea who Guy Fawkes is or ever was fans of the 5th of November, just because of how awesome that movie was. That movie is one of the greatest comic book movies ever made, and please, for the love of God, resist the urge to allow Alan Moore to basically do his anarcho-communist Antifa fan fiction. Please.
Also, I recently learned about this. China, being the pussies they are, had the ending changed by having text appear saying that the revolution was crushed and order restored by the regime.
Tell me you're a bunch of violent communist fucks without telling me, China. And again, they were very smart in making V a classical liberal instead of an anarcho-communist, because I will quote Voltaire just like V did in that movie. People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
Always.
And fuck you, China. I didn't need another reason to say fuck you, China, but fuck you, China.
Oh, you seriously didn't know that one?
I did not know that. And if it is possible for me to hate the CCP more than I already did, I now hate the CCP even more than I already did. You have found a new low, Xi Jinping. Fuck you entirely.
Oh, that's interesting. Channel 4 had attempted to develop a V for Vendetta TV series, but it ultimately did not move forward. The HBO Max / Epic DC series Pennyworth, which followed Bruce Wayne's famous butler Alfred during his life in 1960s London, was also meant to serve as a prequel for V for Vendetta, though it was canceled after 3 seasons before the storyline could be fully fleshed out. Huh.
I'm sorry, but that movie is probably one of the most perfect adaptations of a comic you will ever get. I don't care how much Alan Moore dislikes it. The changes they made the story better. And you're never going to get a better version of V for Vendetta than that movie. I'm sorry. And the only ways I can imagine them changing it in today's zeitgeist is to actually make V the Antifa superhero, the violent anarcho-communist that Alan Moore originally intended, and that is a terrible idea.
Right. Okay. So I guess with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avideze, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
the Wachowskis and company had it right. Alan Moore is wrong. I don't care if it was originally his idea. Stick to the greatest or one of the greatest comic book movies ever made, and pray to God they leave this one on the cutting room floor. Cheers, guys.
See ya.